Hello and welcome to the Gavel. Coming to you from our studios in Abuja, I am Terry Ikumi. Now, federal lawmakers have resumed their committee meetings almost to full capacity. This week on the Gavel, we'll look at the committee meetings and hearings which held in the past week, beginning with the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts, which almost hasn't rested since inauguration. And that's because the committee has its work cut out for it, considering that it has to look into the accounts of every government agency. And some believe that a whole tenure isn't enough to cover all. Now, apart from the meetings held at the National Assembly, the committee was in Kaduna State last week for an oversight function. The House Committee on Public Accounts, led by the Deputy Chairman, was in Kaduna to verify the claim by the Director General of the National Council for Arts and Culture, NCAC, when he appeared before the committee, that its building project in the state was 95% completed, which didn't seem like the case from what the lawmakers saw.
The building was 95% on completion stages. It's another issue that we have to verify.
No, leave this photograph.
The Auditor General had queried the NCAC on money being paid for the project with no structure to show. The team then visited the Director General of the Kaduna State Urban Planning Authority, following the statement by the NCAC that work was in progress, but the building was demolished by the Kaduna State government to build a petroleum institute financed by the Petroleum Technology Development Fund.
For us to pursue every penny, every kobo, every dime of the people of Nigeria, we resolved to come and visit the site and identify agencies of the state government that are involved so that we verify the information that they have given us and to further gather data on the matter so that we'll go and take a decision on this particular query.
Actually, what happened was, I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe when PTDF came, the land was earmarked for their exercise, but along the line they require more land, and it was being more or less scaled and see which one is more of interest. Then they felt Petroleum Institute is more of importance to everybody than that of the whatever land was allocated there. Now, after that, the land was identified, an inventory was done. Valuation team went there to ascertain the level of development, and it's not Kasubda, it's Kajis, Lands and Sobi. They go there in collaboration with all the team that are involved to confirm who owns what and who owns what. And us, our existence there, our activity there is to issue them with planning permission. Whoever obtained planning permission to develop what he does there is going to be given his compensation. 100% compensation, but if you don't have any building permission, then we believe it's an illegal structure. Yeah, and vividly I can remember all the structures there are just an uncompleted building of certain level, just lintel or window or whatever. There was no end development, it was a bush.
Meanwhile, back at the National Assembly, the Committee on Public Accounts continued its hearings, based on the queries by the Auditor General of the Federation to various government agencies. The Bank of Industry was one of those in attendance.
The first issue is the issue of the shares. We quite agree with the letter that there are shares worth 105 billion naira. We have also submitted in our submission the two certificates, one for dated 7th November 2013 for 50 billion issued ordinary shares Bank of Industry issued to Ministry of Finance Incorporated at 2% share that takes us to 100 billion naira. We've also submitted a certificate dated 18th February 2013 for 17,106 shares converted to 34 billion naira, which is also part of which is the 5 billion naira that is mentioned. We've also submitted, along with these certificates, schedule showing exactly the 5 billion naira as well as the 100 billion naira. So the 105 billion naira, they are not in contention, and there are certificates that have been issued.
There were also queries on the debts owed to the Bank of Industry, which are yet to be recovered.
We don't want to shave your head in your absence. So we invited DMO And that is the window from where federal government raise loans. They are here. You're also here to tell us to confirm to Nigerians the position of things. And their submission, in my opinion, is very clear. They have share certificates here, evidencing that yes, the 105 billion naira was indeed taken by Bank of Industry, but the federal government, in our wisdom, converted the 105 billion naira to equity in the bank. So that is what this document is telling us.
Normally, if you are to collect a commercial bank loan, there will be a sort of agreement between you, the lender, and the lendee. And it will specify the principal and the interest that should be paid on the principal. So I'm wondering if at the point of collection of the loan, there was any sort of agreement between Bank of Industry and the federal government. And I also want to know if there is any interest agreed by the two parties to be paid on the principal prior to the conversion of the loan to equity shares of the federal government in the bank. And if this is so, we'll have loved to see evidence of payment of that interest either to the federation account or to wherever it was designated to be paid into.
By standard, every money that comes to us from the federal government is documented with MOU signed between the bank and the representative of the federal government. And therefore, if the money stays with us before it is converted to equity, then it generates interest. As to the figures, I want to appeal to the committee if we can come back with the exact figures before the amount is converted. But all the documentations were done right up to the moment when that amount was converted to equity. I will be able to come back with the figures.
The committee also received the Nigeria Customs Service on pension-related issues, as well as the Federal Road Safety Corps.
Federal Road Safety Corps has heads and grant totaling 34,000 naira. This was doubtful to the Auditor General, and yes, 34,000 naira, sir. What the Auditor General is querying here is that the total sum of 34,000 cannot be the exact sum of aids and grants given to Federal Road Safety Corps.
With that 34,000, it was a balance in our service-wide allocation that was misreported as a grant. Yes. And we have reconciled that with the Accountant General of the Federation. It is the balance in our service-wide. I think there was an issue on how to report it.
As little as the money seems, your explanation is not going for it. Because there is no way between the Accountant General's office, your office, and Auditor General office. Remnant of your budget, expenditure budget, can be closed as grant. So it's as if you are not speaking to this amount of money that is queried.
We want to have assurance from you that you have paid all the arrears when you had no funds. That as a date, you have not paid all the arrears. And how do we verify this? That's what I'm saying. Once we're able to, you are satisfied, we verify this, then we're all good. We're all good to go.
To our own record, we are not pending. We have paid all the outstanding.
How did you pay them?
We don't have any here that is not paid. Some are by check.
Okay.
Some are by e-payment.
The committee is of the opinion that we should confirm that customs has paid all their contribution as employers arrears into the contribution pension scheme. So we'll put up a small committee to work with the customs and confirm this and get back to us.
Our next feature is a special report on the recommendations of the Senate on the Niger Delta Development Commission. We got hold of the 118-page document of the Senate Ad Hoc Committee, which investigated the alleged financial misappropriation in the Niger Delta Development Commission. Take a listen.
It's about 3 weeks now since the Senate adopted the report of its ad hoc committee which investigated the alleged financial misappropriation in the Niger Delta Development Commission. Following that report, a number of allegations have been made by both the NDDC and the National Assembly. While the House of Representatives is investigating the Interim Management Committee of the Niger Delta Development Commission and is yet to arrive at a conclusion, the Senate, through its ad hoc committee, looked into the financial records of the Commission from inception, as well as an alleged misappropriation of 40 billion naira. The investigation stems from a motion by a senator from the region who described the NDDC as a financial conduit pipe.
The Senate is worried further that there have been large acquisition of misuse of funds by previous management of the Commission, which portrayed the Commission as a financial conduit pipe, especially when the aspiration of the founding fathers have been forsaken.
After several hearings and submissions from concerned parties like the Central Bank, Auditor General, Ministry of Finance, governors of the 9 NDDC states, as well as past and present management of the NDDC, among others, the Senate committee came out with a 118-page report containing 17 recommendations. One of the strongest of those is the recommendation of putting development commissions in the presidency for direct presidential oversight. And while many call for the scrapping of the commission for failing to meet up with its mandate to people of the Niger Delta, the Senate instead believes that submission of a quarterly and annual performance report by the NDDC to both houses of the National Assembly could help with that accountability. The committee also called for a refund of 4.92 billion naira payment made to staff and contractors in breach of procurement process, including the 1.5 billion naira COVID-19 relief payment and a fraudulent 1.96 billion naira for Lassa fever kits, which the former acting managing director, Joy Nunye, had openly alleged and condemned. Other recommendations include that the president should step down from the Interim Management Committee to allow for a properly constituted board.
Most of the contracts in NDDC are given out to members of National Assembly, but you don't know about it.
It's okay.
In drawing its conclusions, the Senate committee proposed investigation of alleged blackmail by the NDDC against members of the National Assembly on the subject of procurement process. This subject matter has caused divided opinions on the authenticity of the National Assembly's probe, which was made very evident during the hearing with the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, leading to the subsequent release of names of lawmakers alleged to have so far benefited from the NDDC contracts. While the country awaits the recommendations of the House of Representatives, attention is fixated on the forensic audit of the NDDC and what decisions the President will make.
Welcome back to the Gavel. The House of Representatives has commenced work on the 2021 to 2023 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. At the opening of the hearing, the Speaker called for a cut in the cost of governance and warned government agencies against under-remittance. Take a listen.
The House of Representatives Committee on Finance invited revenue-generating agencies for a 5-day interaction on the 2021 to 2023 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Revenue generation for the country may seem even more difficult now, considering the COVID-19 pandemic, which has negatively affected the economy of the country and the drop in oil prices. This is why the chairman of the committee believes non-oil generating agencies of government have a huge role to play in funding the budget.
The following agencies will limit their expenditures to 60% of revenue: NPA, NEMASA, NCC, NIPOST, NDIC, Nigeria Export Processing Zone Authority, CBN, CAC, Shippers Council, National Inland Waterways Authority, National Insurance Commission, Raw Materials Research Development Council, Federal Mortgage of Nigeria, National Development Sugar Council, and of course, all the parastatals under the aviation.
Over the next 4 days of the hearing, revenue-generating agencies of the government are also expected to make presentations to the committee on expected remittances from them by the Budget Office. And for the Speaker of the House of Representatives, government agencies under-remitting will no longer be tolerated.
We need to impose deep cuts in the cost of governance and improve internal revenue generation and collection. We have credible reports that these desperately needed funds have in many cases been diverted to finance unnecessary trivialities. At the same time, the government is left scrambling for alternative sources to fund priority projects. We cannot afford this dynamic, and we will not tolerate it anymore. The legislature remains the keeper of the public purse, with broad constitutional authority to act on behalf of the Nigerian people to ensure that our collective resources are efficiently administered in service of the public good. Let no one be in doubt. The House of Representatives will not hesitate to act on our constitutional authority, notwithstanding whatever objections may arise.
The interactions continued with the Budget Office responding to proposed revenue generation by the different MDAs.
I was pleasantly surprised to hear NCAA talk about them proposing that they will generate 41.733 billion and they will spend 1.73 plus. Basically, they will spend everything, leaving a net negative of 262,000 naira. So I'm surprised to hear talk about 10 billion planned remittance, but we have basically, the only difference between us and them. So it's not their revenues, which is what they are speaking to. They're saying their revenues, they project their revenues to be impacted. We agree, and so we've accepted their revenue projections, but it's the cost that we're capping to the ceilings that the president has directed.
For 2022, we have 1.7 trillion, and then 2023, we have 1.758 trillion. We hope the COVID will disappear and things will get better. This is what we hope to collect.
What is 2022, sir?
2022 is 1.704.
Well, from our end here, we expect a higher performance of 1.6, 2021, 1.8, 2022, and of course 1.9, 2023.
Well, I don't know the parameters that have been used, but within our own collection methodology, the parameters we have used give us these figures. But if the chairman will add those parameters, I think it will help.
The parameter is that there will be more businesses and more imports, and blockage of loopholes, which you are doing already.
Yeah, we're doing a lot.
You are curtailing a lot of smuggling, and so all that should come through the normal channel. We appreciate the work you are doing, but I'm sure we can do better.
I agree, Mr. Chairman, but I think we shouldn't be too ambitious. Let's manage this one, and then if there's an increase, it will show on the figures.
Sir, if you say you are going to give us 1.4, and we are looking at 1.6, I don't think it is too ambitious. One seizure can give you that
200 billion.
200 billion.
200 billion is a lot of money. The debt office, the debt office knows what it means.
Now, just before we go, the Central Bank of Nigeria has finally made presentations before the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on Power Sector Privatization. Recall that the committee had on 2 occasions frowned at the refusal of the CBN to appear before it. The committee is investigating the privatization process of the power sector, which hasn't shown much improvement. The submissions made by the CBN have now caused a reset in the investigation, prompting the committee to re-invite the stakeholders who had earlier made submissions for reconciliation of figures. When the Central Bank of Nigeria finally appeared before the House Ad Hoc Committee, which is investigating the privatization process of the power sector, the chairman began by expressing disappointment at the CBN for not honoring past invitations of the committee.
While doing our own work, we will expect that agencies and MDAs should also contribute their own quota by supporting our own work. When we do our work in partnership with you, I believe we are delivering service and good governance to the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I have to make very categorically clear that this committee and members of the committee, and by extension the House of Representatives, were particularly unhappy by the initial resistance, I call it resistance, or initial insensitivity of your organization to honor our initial invitations and requests to submit some of these facts that will have made our work much easier.
We do hold the House in very high esteem. And I think it's on record that we do come. I think the issues of understanding how to manage COVID documents and access may have delayed some of the response we could have given. But I won't go into all that. All I ask is that it was not intentional, and we thank you for the opportunity you've given us today.
He then went on to make his presentation.
The rationale for the intervention was obvious to all of us when the power sector was privatized. One of the biggest problems they had was that there was no liquidity. We know generation, the price, distribution, the whole line had issues. But the key one that affected and brought the central bank in was the question of liquidity in the power sector. This led to the setting up of the Nigerian Electric Market Stabilization Facility in 2015. And that illiquidity was because NEPA was owing a lot of people. And when you privatized, those debts were hanging out there, and the people they were owing, especially those that had supplied gas and the like, were asking the question, how will we get paid? Because those were obligations that were outstanding against NEPA. So to provide that liquidity and ensure that they would continue to provide gas to the new companies that took over the responsibility of NEPA, the Electricity Market Stabilization Facility was set up with the amount of 213 billion naira.
I want to say it is now a duty on us to resolve that all other agencies and beneficiaries like the MBET, organizations and agencies that benefited from the whooping 1.3 trillion interventions from the government coffers through the central bank must have to be brought back to the table. They must have to come back to the table. So agencies like NBET, beneficiaries of this whooping sum of money belonging to the coffers of the Nigerian taxpayers, certainly have to come and make appearance again. They have to reappear before this honorable committee so that the committee will now have a second opportunity to compare some of these discrepancies, the figures and the facts presented by all of them, so that at the end we will now come and harmonize our position and get to the root of the matter. The intent ultimately is the fact that we as a representative of the Nigerian people must provide whatever is supposed to be provided to make sure that Nigerian power sector works in Nigeria like in any other country.
Well, that's all the time we have today on The Gavel. Thanks for watching. I am Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.